Visionaries, what's going on? Jason Osborne here. Today we're going to do a raw to finish editing video, a 2022 photography editing video. I'm going to go ahead and talk you step by step on how I like to edit my images in 2022. And sorry you guys don't get to see my beautiful face for this, but I'm sure you won't mind. And I'm going to edit this new picture that I took recently. And I thought that it would be a good candidate to show you how I edit my natural light photos. So this photo right here was taken natural light, no off-camera flash or anything like that. And before we get started, I'm just going to talk about why I positioned it the way I did and why I composed it the way I did. 1.8 aperture, ISO 100, and I used the Sigma 50mm art 1.4 lens, and I shot this with a Canon R6. So basically we're at a park in Houston. The light was absolutely stunning, and I just felt like I didn't want to deal with having to set up my flashes and stuff, so I just went natural light only. And as you can tell just from the light here, the sun was over here in this corner poking through the tree, and it highlighted the model's hair, and her face is completely in the shadows, even light across the board except for this highlight here. And I like that because I feel that when you have too much spots of light that's breaking through the branches or the leaves on a subject's face, while it might offer a great creative look, it can actually deter the viewer of the image and kind of like mess up the image a little bit. And I just hate that, and it makes it a hassle to edit. So I really prefer when I do shoot natural light to have an even cast of light, either them directly standing in the sun or directly in the shade with maybe little pops of light highlighting the hair or the back of the model, etc., etc. So I use this tree to not only block out some of that light and create an even shade, but also to frame the subject. Right here we have a tree in the background, and you can tell that the aperture is wide open. That's why we have that blurry background. And we were able to frame the subject between this tree and the background and offer a great composition with the subject center of frame, but your eyes are directly drawn into the subject. So basically, if I zoom into the subject, another test is the sharpness test. Now look at that sharpness. I love it. This lens is amazing, even at 1.8 aperture. The Sigma 50mm art, if you're looking for a great 50mm lens, this lens is amazing. As you can tell, look how sharp this photo is even at 1.8 aperture. Let's get to work. So first thing that I like to do, as always, which is something that if you go back to any of my other editing photos, I always like to crop my photos as if I'm going to post this to Instagram. Now, or I don't know if I'm going to post this photo to actually Instagram, but I am going to crop the photo to the Instagram dimensions just in case I decide to throw it out there. So that's the 4x5, 8x10, and I'm gonna go ahead and crop it right there. Boom. I also like to crop in because it brings the subject closer to the actual viewer of the photo, and it allows you to really once again get drawn into the subject and not feel so far away. So there we go. Over here we have our panel here, and if you need me to go and do another Lightroom 101 video, or Lightroom 101 video, not one-on-one, 101, I can't talk today, sorry guys, about what these things do, the slider functions, how they edit your photos, I can do that. But if you want to dig, just go on my channel and find my Lightroom photography editing 101 video that covers all these sliders and what they do. But obviously Lightroom has added some things since that video was taken, so I might do a new one anyway. First thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and adjust the exposure and just make some basic adjustments here. So I'm gonna do that now. Let's go with the exposure. That's good right there. Add some contrast, cut through some of that natural light haze. We're gonna boost the shadows up just a little bit. We're gonna bring the highlights down so we can bring some more detail in the background. The whites and the blacks I'm gonna leave how they are. Clarity, I'm gonna go ahead and increase that by about 10 to 12. I don't go any higher than that typically, and even that looks a little hard, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring that down to about 9. Vibrance, give it a little bit of boost of color, nothing crazy. And saturation, I'm gonna leave it right there. Okay, so this shows you the power of RAW. If I go ahead and show the original, you can see that already I would be able to keep the details and the highlights, put exposure on the model, you know, raise the exposure of the photo overall and nothing's blown out. Now I typically underexpose my photos for this very reason when I shoot natural light, because I want to be able to preserve that detail and use the raw, you know, data in the file to bring that exposure, that color back. You can't really do that with JPEG. You can do it to a certain extent, but after a while you're not going to be able to boost up the colors or the exposure or the white balance, and that's going to really prohibit your editing. So always shoot in raw. If you wonder why everyone's saying shoot in raw, well, that's why. You can't get that kind of detail recovery with a regular JPEG photo. I'm also going to adjust the white balance. Since we're in the shadow, the overall tones of the photo are cool, and we're going to warm it up just a little bit. So we're going to go to temperature, and we're going to warm up the temperature of the photo just a little bit to make it a little bit more warm, just like that. And for the tint, we're going to leave it where it is. So after that, we're going to skip color grading for now. We're going to come down to sharpening. We're going to grab this little detail zoom here. We're going to put it over the subject's eye, which really is just going to allow me to see how sharp the photo is getting. I usually go to about 68 to 70 around there for the sharpness of the photo. And then masking, I'm going to hold the Alt key, and this is basically going to allow me to see what is being affected by the sharpening. Everything that is highlighted in white is being sharpened. Everything that is dark is not being sharpened. So I use this to really dial in my sharpening. I leave a lot of the white on the eyes and stuff like that, a little bit on the face, so you do want some of that texture in the face to still be sharp. So I'm gonna leave it right there around 74. Noise reduction, I don't see any noise really in this photo. Pretty good exposure, no noise, but I'm still gonna add a little bit of tad of noise reduction in there because that will give it a nice soft feel. The noise reduction is also good for softening your photo up and softening the skin a little bit. For the vignetting, I'm gonna go ahead and put a little vignette on it. I don't ever use the white vignette, but I do happen to use the dark vignette a lot, and I do that just to once again draw the eye in to the subject. Good way to help the subject pop as well. So I'm just gonna darken the corners just a little bit, just like that, around 14, and then we can start playing around with the colors a little bit. The calibration, I love this right here. It's just an overall tone slider and hue sliders of the blues, greens, and reds. I usually just go with the blues and the greens, and I'll go ahead and you can see with the extreme levels, if you go ahead and slide that, get the teal and orange look all the way to the left with the blues, and the greens and purple look if you go to the right. I usually like to find a little bit, and this is just to add a little bit more color to the photo. I don't go to the extremes. The same thing with the greens and the you get the nice teal and purple type look all the way to the right with the greens, and then the super harsh yellows to the left. And I usually just like to go a little bit like right there. All right, that's pretty good. We're gonna go back up to the other colors up here, and we'll play around with a little bit of the saturation. Green grass, yellow. So let's see what happens to take the yellows out. Now yellows can be a very distracting color to photos in my opinion. Sometimes even on a beautiful golden light day, there's just too much yellow, and it can really add too much of a nasty tone to the photo in my opinion. So I like to take some of the yellows out. I don't take it all out because then it turns a little bit too cool, but I'm just gonna reduce the yellows just a little bit, like right there. Boost the greens up just a little bit, and then I'm gonna go to hues and also change the hue of the yellow to give it more of a orange look, and then the greens as well. I'm gonna go ahead and pump up some more of that green. All right, now we're coming to our tone curve. I use the tone curve simply just to add a little bit more contrast to the photos. It's really helpful for natural light photos as well. It helps cut through some of that natural light haze that you might find. I find this to be a little bit more better than using the dehaze slider, which essentially does the same thing. But what I do is I create 4 points, one at the top, middle, bottom, and lower bottom. This represents the darks and shadows over here. This represents the highlights over here. I typically will just go to the bottom down here, grab that bottom point, and dip it down slightly. And as you can see, that contrast is getting put in there, and a lot more details cutting through. That might be a little extreme, so I'm gonna go ahead and adjust it. You don't have to do too much, just a little bit, just a tad bit to really make a difference in the photo. All right, So this is a Lightroom and Photoshop tutorial, but we're not done with Lightroom just yet. We're going to zoom in and we're going to focus on the facial features real quick. Not doing any retouching in Lightroom, but we are going to hit the eyes a little bit. So I'm going to my mask feature here. I'm going to click the brush. I'm going to go from sharpness to teeth whitening. And not that, you know, our model needs any teeth whitening, but, you know, just put a little bit on there, just a little bit. All right. And then we're also going to create a new mask, brush again, go back to teeth whitening, and we're going to use this for the eyes. And what I like to do this for is because it really helps you connect and make eye contact with the subject. It makes it a lot easier, and I find that, you know, you can really view the model a little bit better. Now, with that said, you can go overboard, and I do feel like this is a little too overboard. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click the teeth right here. I'm gonna bring this up, and I'm just gonna lower it so it's not so super white. And then same thing with the eyes. I'm gonna click the eyes, and I'm gonna bring the eyes down just a little bit. Subtlety is key in 2022. Back in the day, edits would be crazy. They look like X-Men. Now you want to make subtle edits that really can't even, you know, see if they're there. Now, as far as the eyes themselves, I'm going to click another mask, go to brush. I'm going to go to iris enhance. Bring this back down. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it on the half of the eye, just like that, because light will naturally reflect from the top of the eye to the bottom of the eye. And that's pretty much all I'm going to do for that. Turn the mask off. Boom. So far this is where we are. We have our unedited raw photo as it was imported on the left, and we have our Lightroom edit so far on the right. Now, I think I'm good with where this is going to go. So now we're going to go into Photoshop and retouch the skin and color grade. So what I do for that is right click, edit in, Photoshop 2022. My computer is second to load up. All right. So now we have our image that we started editing in Lightroom, and now we're in Photoshop. Now, I realized after a while that I use the same, you know, layers and the same type of actions, and not actions, but layers and type of editing techniques. When I opened Photoshop, instead of always having to set it up image by image, I created my own action. This action includes frequency separation for skin, dodge and burn, and it also contains a color grade layers. So if you want this action, I'll go ahead and send it to you for free. Just go ahead and let me know in the comments, and I will go ahead and send you my Photoshop action. So I click new FS, I hit play, and all my editing layers that I typically use to edit pop up. And as I said, FS, frequency separation for skin, automatically set up, dodge and burn, DMB, and then CG stands for color grade, and I have the three things that I like to use for color grading. So starting with frequency separation, what we're going to do is we're going to go in to the skin. We're going to click the healing brush tool. I like the healing brush tool more than anything else. And I click the texture layer. And if you don't know, frequency separation allows you to edit the texture separate from the color of the skin. So you're editing one or the other without affecting the other, which is really helpful to get that high-end editing. This is one of the reasons why people don't edit in a skin a lot in Lightroom, because when you edit in Lightroom, you're expecting both the color and the texture. It's important that you do it separately so you get the most accurate results. So I'm going to go with the texture first. And because she has fairly good skin, you know, she has a lot of freckles, but not really that many blemishes, anything like that. A couple, you know, lines around the eyes and around the mouth, we'll touch those up. I like to also create a black and white layer. And what this black and white layer does, it allows me to see any blemishes or any kind of flaws by lowering the reds and the yellows a lot easier. Okay. So we're gonna leave that on for now, go back to our texture layer. And I'm just going to touch up some of the skin. Now, typically when I do editing videos, I fast forward through this, but I don't think it's gonna take me that long to do this one. So I'm just gonna let it go. And if I change my mind, I'll let you know. What I'm doing is I'm looking for any dark spots, dark lines that I know typically won't be there after a while. I'm touching those up first. Easy to tell what's a freckle and what's a blemish once you've seen enough faces. And obviously, if you're just starting out, it will take you a little time to get good at skin retouching. Like everyone, I did it way too much when I first started, and you know, it looked like my models' faces were gonna melt off of their face. But you know, after a while you get better at it and you realize that less is actually more. So as you see, I'm just going ahead and retouching some of the smile lines. Not that she doesn't have a great smile, but you know, touching them up. And what I'm doing here is I'm selecting a good part of skin, and then I am using that to heal the other parts of skin that I want to touch up. Every now and then I'll take the black and white layer off just to see that it looks natural. It does so far. So I'm going to keep going. The black and white layer back on. See what the forehead is looking like. Forehead is just freckles, looks pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and touch up this little section right here. Sometimes you do have to take the black and white layer off just to make sure there's a freckle. And I don't see anything wrong with the forehead. Here we're just going to touch up the eyes just a little bit. For my hardness, I typically, for this, will keep it hard, around 71. This preserves the detail in the skin, the pores, everything, and it won't give a soft blur to your retouching. Because if you didn't have that, then you would clearly be able to see exactly where things were healed. So I usually keep it between 70 and 80 for the hardness, if you're wondering for my brush settings. All right, so that's pretty good. Gonna go ahead and touch this up real quick, just a little bit. I'm gonna take the black and white layer off. I don't think I need it at that point. We're gonna go ahead and just touch underneath the eyes in the corner right here. I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in with some good skin. Same thing up here. Right here, touch this up just a little bit. Zoom into the lips. A little bit more. Excellent. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty much good with the skin retouching right there for the texture. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the color layer. And what I love to use for the color layer is the mixing brush tool. And I like to use the mixing brush tool for under the eyes. You know, we have a little bit of darkness, you know, dark circle under the eyes real quick. So what I like to do is grab some, you know, nice bright skin, and then I just brush in right where the eyes are, level that out, just like that. And you see how the texture is not being affected, it just affected the color. And after that, I pretty much go ahead and grab my lasso tool and I start just clicking some of the uneven parts that are color and using the frequency separation. Let's go with around 16 to level some of that out. I'll zoom out so you can see actually what's going on. And the frequency separation is just a age-old trick of getting high quality results for skin retouching. So I think I'm pretty good with that. And just to show you where we were for before and after, I'll turn off the frequency set, the facial editing. So this is the before, and this is the after. Before, after, before, after. As you can still see, the pores, you can still see the detail in the skin. I just, you know, enhance it just a little bit. not called retouching for nothing. All right, now we're gonna go to our dodge and burn. Now dodge and burn is very, a great way to add definition and pop to your photo, especially to the face. It's kind of similar to contouring with makeup, but you don't have to just use it on the face. You can use it to, the background, the trees, the clothes, all of that. Typically, I just keep it on the model, and I'm going to do that, but I will use it not only on the face, but I'll use a little bit on the hair and on the clothes. If you want, you can create different copy of this layer so you can control different things. So what I'll do is I'll create a copy hitting Control J on here, and basically this will be my face. I'll just rename it real quick. Dodge and burn face, and the copy will be dodge and burn clothes. Okay, so starting with dodge and burn face, we're going to start with the burn, and we're going to go to the brush tool, and basically what we're going to do here is we're going to leave everything at 100. It's going to look really dark. And how you dodge and burn for global dodge and burn, we're not talking local dodge and burn, but global dodge and burn, we're just going to hit the shadows with the darks and then the highlights with the dodge. Okay, so the burn with the darks and the highlights and the brights with the dodge, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So this is a shadow, so we're just going to go ahead, paint over that shadow. The bottom of the chin right here, hit that. Around here on the neckline, cool. Down here, cool. Along here, cool. Nostrils, yep. Bottom of the lip right here, cool. Inside the mouth, cool. Right here. On the side. What else? Got a little bit of the cheekbone right here. Cool. All right, let's do a little bit on the hair. Those are the hair, like that. In the shadows, in the shadows. All right, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use the dodge. Highlight right here, here, all the shiny parts, cheekbones, top of the lip, hair, here, this. Cool. Now I know it looks crazy, but what we're going to do now is we're going to go to opacity and we're going to lower it, and then we're going to bring it back up to where it's noticeable but only you notice it. So we're going to bring it up to about 21. If I take it off, you can tell it's being affected, but it's not as crazy as it looked before. But as you can see, it's already adding that definition and pop to her face and hair. And that's essentially what dodge and burn does. It adds a little pop. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing for the clothes. So we're going to start with the burn again as well. Shadows in the sleeve. Don't worry about being perfect because you're going to lower the opacity. It's not going to matter. That. Pants. Okay. And going to the dodge, same thing. Dodge. 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 All right, and then what do? We close it up, go down to opacity, lower it, and then we bring it back. so we start to see a little pop. Just like that. All right, that's around 22 again. And just to show you. Boom. All right, so we're almost done, folks. Hold on a little bit longer. If you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comment section below if you're still sticking around watching this tutorial or video. And yeah, let's continue. So now we have this. We're going to go to color grading. Now for color grading, I use 3 different layers. I use Selective Color, Gradient Map, and Color Lookup. All right, and you can find all those in the layer section right here. Here's Selective Color, Gradient Map, Color Lookup. All right, so we start with Selective Color first. And this is similar to the color calibration in Lightroom, where you can control the different hues of different color tones. I typically stick with red and yellow, and then if there's other present colors that are rarely present, I'll edit those too. So we're gonna start with red first, and we're just gonna add a little bit more red tones into this photo, help the skin pop a little bit, help that hair pop a little bit. Very subtle. Same thing with the yellows and the red spectrum, giving it a little bit more warmth. Going to yellow now. Getting the cyan, opposite direction, more right there. That's pretty good. All right, so we've got some blues and cyan. So let's go to the blue, see what color the shirt we can change. Okay, so there we go. I don't want to get too drastic, so I'm just gonna enhance it just a little bit. Give it more on the blue side than the purple side. We can change how dark it is as well. Let's bring it a little bit darker. Make it really pop. Okay, let's see what the greens do for the grass in the background. Not doing too much. Get that right there. And then there's not really much other than that. The whites will overall just affect all the whites in the photo, so we can add just a little bit of color to that. Nothing crazy. Just a little bit of color. So something like that. All right. Very subtle, very subtle. Okay, now we're going to gradient map. It's always going to start off like this. So what I do is I pick from the basic gradient map folder, and I start with a gradient that I think will look good for the tones in the photo. I'm going to start with this right here. So everything that's a highlight, that's a bright part of the photo, is going to be given this tan warm hue, and everything that is a shadow or dark in the photo is going to be given a darker hue. So I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit, about 24, and see how it's faded. I'm going to go to my soft light and click soft light. There you go. And lastly, the color lookup. I've been experimenting with different color lookups. I typically will just go with the 30% opacity, but I think what I'm going to stick with is this Kodak 5218. I've been liking this one a lot, and I'm going to lower the opacity just a little bit so it's not so present in the photo. I'll bring it down to 20. All right, so folks, we're almost done here. Okay, I'm going to turn off all the layers so you can see exactly how it was when it came into Photoshop from Lightroom. Okay, so this is how it was from Lightroom. Then we added our skin retouching. We added our dodge and burn for the face. We added our dodge and burn for the close. And then we added our color grading. So it's looking pretty good. Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna bring this back into Lightroom and make our final adjustments. And how we do that is we go up to File, we hit Save, and it's gonna save, and it's automatically gonna save a copy and bring it right back to Lightroom like you never left. So we're just gonna wait until this save goes. We're gonna go back to our Lightroom, and there it is, our Photoshop edit, just waiting for us. Now, the color grading can give a little bit too much of a contrasty look sometimes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost the shadows just a little bit, just to bring up those darks a little bit. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a little shadow enhancement, bring those shadows up just a little bit, also in the hair area. Get some of that detail back. One of the last things I like to do, I'm going to add a gradient mask, or linear gradient, and I'm going to bring this in the corner. And this is going to represent like a sun flare that's peeking into the lens just a little bit. So I use that. You can see where it's being affected right there. Go to exposure. We're going to raise the exposure up a tad. We're going to bring the highlights up a tad, because obviously it'd be brighter up there. And we're going to turn the dehaze down just a little bit, at that little glow. And then we're going to go ahead and add some warmth into there. We're really showing that it was a nice sunny day. Cool. And then I'm also going to add Radial Filter. First, before I do that, I'm going to raise the exposure up the curves and just bump up the midtones just a little bit right there. Now I'm going to go to my radial gradient, put a circle over her, invert it. So as you can see, everything outside of the circle will be affected, everything inside of the circle will not be affected. And I'm going to decrease the exposure, and I'm going to lower this feather so it's not such a circle around her that looks so apparent. Basically, it's keeping the same exposure on her face while keeping everything else a little bit darker, so you really connect with it. Excellent. And lastly, I'm going to zoom in onto these eyes, sharpen those up just a little bit. The brush, like sharpness, and I'm gonna paint sharpness onto her eyes, and boom, there we are, right there. Now let's go ahead and bring up the original. This is with the edits, and let's go ahead and bring in the raw version of it. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is the complete raw photo right here. This is with Lightroom and Photoshop right here, face. And we zoom out, you can see the end result to the beginning right here. And yeah, I mean, I'm very happy with that. And here you are. Your photography editing 2022 version using Lightroom and Photoshop. Alright guys, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you watched the whole thing, I appreciate you. Like I said before, if you have any comments or questions or inquiries about why I edited the photo I did, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Also, don't forget, if you want my Photoshop action, please let me know. I'll be sure to link it to you. And yeah, I'm very happy with the way this came out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And this is Jason Osborne. Until the next one, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.